All right, well, it is 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ms. Bedell is joining us virtually. Ms. Bedell, are you there?
I am.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, she recently had a baby and is in the hospital with a magnesium drip to bring down her high blood pressure, but she felt it important enough to join us this evening, so she's in the hospital and will participate. We do have a quorum. I'll be sitting in as chair for Ms. Bedell. Item for discussion and possible action, fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed Stratford Public Schools itemized estimate of expenditures. As everybody knows, the council approved their budget, sent over the numbers to us. We had asked Ms. Borges to put together a scenario that'll show us how we can spend that additional money and whatever adjustments. So I'm going to read through the recommended adjustments. Everybody on the board has had an opportunity to sit with Ms. Borges and have explanations as to where these numbers come from and what her thought process was. Well, hopefully they have.
Mike, would it be okay if I read a statement first, just to go through some stuff?
Sure, if you like to. Yeah, sure.
So first, I just want to thank everybody for convening today. This budget season has been exceptionally grueling and emotional. It's a testament to the deep passion everybody shares for the Stratford Public Schools. I do want to recognize that the decisions we make here are difficult and the impact of any loss is profoundly felt throughout for all of our community. Throughout this process, I want to acknowledge that my cabinet has maintained open lines of communication through emails, phone calls, and in-person meetings. We wanted to ensure that your extensive questions were answered. We have strived to provide all the necessary information to assist you in this decision making, which reflects our dedication to transparency and accountability. Pam has answered numerous questions from every single one of you. Our doors have been open, and we have tried to make sure that you have each piece of information that you need. We have diligently executed our responsibilities to create effective plans to manage the daily operations of our school and ensure that every ounce of allocated funding directly supports our students. Our commitment to transparency and clarity has never wavered, and we have worked tirelessly to ensure that all of our voices are heard. I'm immensely proud of the effort and resilience displayed by the Stratford Public Schools employees during this very challenging year. Their dedication is the backbone of our community's educational success. With the plan you have in front of you, I am confident that the Stratford Public Schools will continue to strive for excellence in serving our students and our families. And as you read through these, I'm hoping you can keep in mind some key takeaways. It was vitally important to my team to have strong leadership and provide students with the most direct service possible with the dollars that were allocated. In the original plan, 33 SEA members were eliminated. Through restructuring, gifts, grants, involuntary transfers, we were able to create 27 SEA positions, 19 interventionists, 4 media specialists, 1 mental health professional, 1 SLP, 1 business, 1 music teacher. And in addition, we've had approximately 18 teacher retirements, and we currently have 43 SEA positions posted. We were slated to cut 4 SAA members. This was mitigated by restructuring central office, reducing the number of administrators at central office from 18 down to 12 administrators. With promotions, retirements, we were able to secure all tenured SAA members with a position. Again, this was using grant funds and a lot of involuntary transfers and restructuring that we know are difficult, but in order to do that, we feel we are doing what is best for the Stratford Public Schools. We know that interns were a big, important point for our building principals. So with some of this restructuring, we were able to continue to offer a building intern in every single building. And we know, and I accept, and I have acknowledged repeatedly that no budget is perfect. But I am so proud of the work this team did to create what you see in front of you. And I believe in the Stratford Public Schools, and I feel confident that the restructuring that we are presenting to you will support our staff and our students.
Thank you. So I'm going to read through the recommended adjustments. There are 2 parts to this based on the way the money was allocated to us from the town. One was called a gift, or for lack of a better term, a gift, and needed to be structured in a different manner as per Ms. Mangini's recommendation. So there'll be 2 parts to this. So $100,000 plus $100,000 additional cost for town property insurance, $30,000 additional cost for athletic trainer per RFP process, $175,000 additional funding needed for ESY, $183,600 funding needed for interns. District is committed to fall interns. Will add 1 intern per school for 24-25 school year. $79,642, add 1 FTE speech language pathologist. Step 5 plus benefits, new position per HB. We would be saving $530,307 additional retirement savings. Total reduction of $879,993. We had $274,686 plus $75,000 savings in the original budget. $188,000, add new assistant superintendent position for teaching and learning. Title change for, this is a title change for director of pupil services to assistant superintendent of student and staff services. A savings of $81,390, which is the full savings of elimination of Franklin assistant principal positions. No bumping due to internal transfers. $81,390, which is the full savings of elimination of Lordship assistant principal position. No bumping due to internal transfers. $192,524 savings. Eliminate supervisor, ELA, SS, and math science. Already included was $120 in savings, assumes no bumping. And we would add 2 FTE 7 to 12 STEM department heads, which will be added through Alliance. Maintain 2.0 FTE 7 to 12 humanities department heads, which are currently in Alliance. $147,578 savings, eliminate the supervisor, ESOL due to language. $129, that was a savings. Additional cost, $129,212. Add 1 FTE 7 to 12 ESOL dual language department head. A savings of $156,262. Eliminate the supervisor of guidance and assessments. Savings of $114,203. Eliminate the grant administrator. $46,879. Add 1 FTE supervisor of assessment, accountability, and grant management. 60% is Alliance, 30% is the general fund, and 10% of that is grant of that cost. $45,878 additional costs, replace library tutors at the high school with IT technicians, additional, which is an additional $21,309 plus taxes per position. Savings of $75,000, the supervisor of the ELS. Retirement replacement will be partially funded through preschool grant. A savings of $90,028. Current coordinator of alternative education position is eliminated. No bumping, so full salary savings. The new position has been created through the Project Uplift Grant, coordinator of alternative instructional programs. a savings of $221,568, which is to reduce the Magnet School tuition account per new state legislation, account number 1155. 261,162 savings, reduce the Magnet School tuition account per state legislation number 1156. Additional cost of 78,141. Addition of one FTE certified teacher to be shared by high schools. 78,141. Addition of one FTE elementary music teacher. 78,141. Addition of one special ed teacher for new ABA class at Franklin. Additional cost of $126,307, which is to add 4 tutors for secondary school, and $122,000, which is to add 1 FTE reading interventionist. We will be pulling out of this budget, $1 million, this portion of the budget, to reduce the health insurance cost, which will be expensed to the town's one-time $2 million allocation. That's the first piece of it. The second piece, which I'll reach through, which will be shorter, an additional cost of $474, and this is for the $2 million gift that the town gave us. $474,860, reinstatement of 4 FTE elementary librarians. $62,439, reinstate floater secretary position, will support AIP in elementary schools. $122,000, add 1 FTE math interventionist. $122,000, add 1 FTE reading interventionist. $156,262 would be to add 1 FTE 7 to 12 innovative and engagement supervisor, which is new. $62,439, add 1 FTE preschool secretary. And then the $1 million which we added into this piece is the reallocation of the fiscal year 25 health insurance costs, which is $2 million. Mr. Branyan?
Yeah, make a motion to accept the proposed reductions and revisions in order to adopt and move forward the itemized estimate of expenditures for 2024-2025 fiscal year in the amount of $127,502,725.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Bedell. Is there any discussion? Mr. Branyan?
I'd like to make an amendment.
Sure.
To add a negative $300,000 salary adjustment. And this is a budgetary technique where you're just accounting for continued attrition, which then hopefully, I believe that Heather has the possibility to reallocate those savings back into the classroom.
So if we can get the amendment approved, then we will ask Ms. Board just to explain, or we can do it under discussion. But a motion was made by Mr. Branyan to make the amendment of the $300,000. We have a second by Ms. Bedell. Open to discussion. Ms. Boyd, would you like to explain, or do you have any thoughts on if we did this, how you would expend those funds?
I definitely have thoughts on if you did it, how we could expend the funds. However, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Mangini because there are concerns. We want to make sure that we are putting forward a fiscally appropriate budget, and we want to make sure that we are accounting for all of our staff in personnel. So I would like to at least make sure we are hearing all sides, including Ms. Mangini's side, before we talk about what we can do with that money.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I do understand where Mr. Branyan is coming from. This is a practice that GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, does speak about as far as best practice. As you know, we've talked about this in the past, and my only hesitation, and I say this with all due respect to all of the board who may be inclined to lean towards doing this, if our historical data of our year-end balances were the last few years and they weren't in the midst of a once-in-a-century pandemic, I would be completely on board, and I would say yes. We need to take a look at our historical data. We need to come up with a calculation that does not support any reduction to our personnel. I'm being very honest and very transparent. This makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I don't think it's an astronomical amount. I appreciate that fact. But just for the record, I do want to say that it makes me uncomfortable. I don't think it's a best practice. I am of the mindset that we should always be budgeting for every single position in the budget as though it is going to be filled. And again, I do understand through attrition that we've experienced that, people coming and going, and we've had savings. I know that. So I understand the average person sitting back thinking this is a reasonable thing to do. And again, if our history weren't in the midst of the pandemic, I would be agreeing. I am just concerned that as all the ESSER monies disappear this year, and you can only imagine the number of jobs that were filled that are now going to not be available, I'm not so sure we're going to see the kind of challenges that we've had in filling positions. So that's just my 2 cents. I appreciate you allowing me to at least voice that because I am a little bit uncomfortable with it.
If the board does choose to move forward with that, my recommendation, I'm sure all of you are aware that through ESSER, we were able to provide additional mental health supports. So my recommendation with the additional funds would be to add 1 mental health provider. We are in desperate need of an additional speech and language pathologist. And then I would recommend an interventionist and tutors for the remainder of the money. We just did put in 4 tutors for the secondary, so these would be tutors for the elementary.
Trevor, just a quick question.
Ms. Bedell, go ahead.
How many interventionists was that total bringing back then?
So right now, if we used it for an interventionist, we have 19 currently, and we would be adding 1 more, so you would be at 20.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Cormier.
So, Ms. Borges, you're talking about adding another, if we went this way, you're talking about adding another full-time speech and language pathologist in addition to the one you've proposed in the recommended adjustment.
Yeah, so the one proposed in the recommended adjustment is currently a contracted position at Flood Middle School. Flood houses our sales program, and they do need a speech and language pathologist. This additional speech and language pathologist would support Second Hill Lane that has 4 ABA classrooms. These students use assistive technology and have a significant number of speech hours. So I am assuming, since every year for the past 3 years, we have added additional ABA classrooms, that need is going to continue to grow, and to meet that need equitably would really require an additional speech and language pathologist. And they also work on the social pragmatic language, Chris, so that's just super important for our students and a great need that we have right now.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Carol Davis.
I guess through you to Mrs. Mangini, Pam, with contract negotiations coming up, are any of the funds in this salary reserve fund, right, earmarked to respond to contractual changes that are negotiated?
With regard, we don't have any very large contracts coming up for next year's budget. Our largest, of course, is our teachers, and while we'll be negotiating that, our salaries are in place for fiscal year 25. The salary reserve, we do budget for a reasonable percentage, which I can't divulge because we'll be in negotiations with, we are currently beginning with our nurses and our CIA union, and I believe our custodians are coming up as well. So there is funding in there for that, but we do not have a salary reserve fund. So we budget based on the actual positions that are board approved positions. I know some districts do in fact have some kind of additional funding for, say, extra teachers should they need them. That isn't something that we've been able to do.
I have several other questions.
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to address the largest chunk of my questions revolve around the Alpha program. I'm just curious if someone can explain why Alpha was the first cut in this budget when it was the last item to be added as a possible cut to the proposed cuts.
When I took into consideration the amount of money that we received from the town council, as well as the gift, as well as the restructuring funds. In order to put Alpha back, I couldn't have as much impact on as many students with the additional positions that were put back. It was a very difficult decision to make. I felt very confident after speaking with Ms. Mesha and the building principals and the plan to have the Alpha students meet with a school counselor and create a school plan for each of those students, as well as to be able to, add an additional mental health professional that will be working at AIP and working to support our secondary students. I felt like it was in our best interest to use the funds to impact more students by putting back the media specialists, the interventionists, the speech and language pathologists. So it was a very difficult decision, Lisa, frankly, but putting it all back into one program wouldn't have enabled us to put back the 27 positions.
So with Alpha eliminated, how other programs meet these student needs? Can you provide specific examples of how like AIP can replicate or enhance the support provided by Alpha?
So each student from Alpha needs an individual plan. There is no one program for one thing that'll be perfect for everybody. Some of the students that have IEPs and identifications may benefit from our STEPS programs that are at both high schools. Some students may benefit from CTE options, work credit, and there have been a lot of work that's gone into with the school counseling department that I've worked with Joanna on as far as credit recovery. So each student needs an individual plan. There is no one program that is perfect for any individual student. Some of the students may access AIP, and that may be the place in which their needs are met. One of the benefits, because I always try to look at what could be positive, and what's positive is increased inclusion. As you know, when I speak from special education, inclusion is vitally important. Students are supposed to be in their least restrictive environment. They are supposed to have access to the extent possible for both high schools. And I am hoping with each of our principals welcoming the students back with open arms and making sure they have plans that work for each student, that we are including our students better. That is my hope, that is my desire. It is always my desire to make sure we include students. So as much as any loss, as I said from the beginning, is detrimental and hard, I believe we are making the larger impact by choosing to add back the 27 positions.
Credit recovery without Alpha.
Credit recovery can be done at the high schools. There's legislation that passed. We are working with our school counselors on that credit recovery, so we will still honor those students' credit recovery, as well as, frankly, new legislation passed that said all students need access to that. So all of our students will have access to credit recovery, and now students are supposed to be duly allowed to be taking a class and recovering credit for that class using different programs. And there are APEX, and there are different programs that the state pays for. There's also paid programs.
So who will be responsible for monitoring that?
Our school counselors are responsible for our students with credit recovery.
So then, to your point, they'll be able to recover credit to
While
help
still
students
taking
graduate
classes.
on time so that our graduation rate does not decline. You said a mental health provider will be added to each high school?
Not to each high school. The mental health provider is servicing the secondary schools. One mental health provider servicing the secondary schools. Really to help with the family outreach, to get students back into school, chronic absenteeism, school avoidance. Those are vital areas that we need, so we need additional support, and oftentimes your social workers and your psychologists in the building need to be in the building. So if we have one person who can help get out for family visits and outreach, that's what we want to do.
So I guess I'm just, this was just a hard one for me to swallow here. So I just want to make sure that we aren't leaving kids in flux. I want to make sure that they have a safe space to land and not even one of them falls through the crack. And I understand that ALPA is only affecting 38 to 41 students. They are all important. So I just need to better understand what is going to be different support-wise for these students who are being returned from Alpha than when they were originally at Benalla Stratford High School.
I hear your sadness. I'm sad too for any changes, Lisa. I don't know how else to tell you this. You know, it is, the students are gonna be meeting with the school counselors, the principals are aware of that, and they are putting plans in place to support those students. If that is successful, you will be the first person to know. If we mess up and miss somebody, I will make sure I am transparent and I let you know. But that is our plan, and that is how we are servicing the students. And as difficult as these decisions are to make, I am trying to root the decisions in the larger mass. And I want to make sure that you understand that that is where it was. It's not because it was easy, it's because I was trying to make sure that we were hitting all those buckets.
I understand that. My job as sitting in the seat is to make sure that we look out for all of our students. And I understand the position that we were all put in. And these hard decisions had to happen, unfortunately, because we are not being given what we need. With regards to the space that Alpha takes up, when we were in, last night we were talking about redistricting and you know, being more effective with our space. We're freeing up a significant amount of space at Stratford High School. How will this be utilized in the most efficient way?
There are some classrooms there. There are some, I'll speak specifically first to the special education teachers. You have some special education teachers at Stratford High School that the specs of the design of that building are not exactly the size they thought they were going to be. The room can't even fit the 10 students they're supposed to be servicing, so they're working out of extremely tiny rooms. So some of those students will be moved there. There is a science lab. They'll be teaching a science class out of there. And we are expecting the expansion of STEPS, which is our program that serves students that are suffering from emotional disabilities. So they will be moving down to that area as well, because right now they are cramped in one space servicing the 20 students, and so they will be able to have an additional space. So, and again, as the tab reports run and the classes are moved there, I can make sure you get a full printout of which classes are running out of there. There are some teachers that do not have their own classroom, that do move classrooms there, and you are currently utilizing the Career Center that is supposed to be to work on school counseling and career engagement. There's currently classes being taught out of there. So some of the classes that are being taught out of spaces that weren't intended to be classrooms will move to classrooms.
I have more on other areas, but if somebody else has a question.
Just anybody? No? So,
Are we talking about anything in the budget or just on the amendment that
just on the amendments, well, I guess, we're looking to pass the budget, so, but the discussion, I think, should be centered around the recommended adjustments, but, I'll leave it to you guys to, if you have specific questions, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Heather, can you tell us more about the coordinator of the alternative instructional programs and what her job duty will be?
The coordinator of alternative instructional programs is run out of AIP, and that is for our Project Uplift. So the job responsibilities are, they work with students that have been suspended or expelled. They work with homebound students. They work with students that need an alternative way in order to learn, and that is the program, that is the position we created using grant funds in order to make sure that Ms. Mesha, who is an absolutely wonderful alternative coordinator, has a job that fits within her reason that I know she can do some really good at.
Thank you. And then for Pam, can you tell us a little more about the new state legislation that reduced the magnet school tuition?
Yes, this was actually talked about early in the legislative session back in the fall, and we being district leaders were a little apprehensive about whether or not it would pass, because what it is doing in essence is providing relief to districts that are sending students to the agri-science and the magnet schools, whereby the district that we're sending them to, the schools cannot charge us more than 58% of the tuition that is currently being charged in fiscal year 24. So obviously you can see that became a significant savings, and we were waiting for it to be formally signed by the governor before we brought it to you, and that just happened recently.
I like it. Thank you.
I've got a question. First, I just really want to commend you on your vast knowledge of all the moving parts of this. I know this was a huge job, and I'm just very impressed with the knowledge that you have in all areas of our district. So I want to thank you and commend you for that. We currently have 7,000 plus or minus students. I know the big concern is some of the kids should fall through the gap, and just based on the sheerness of our numbers, it would be virtually impossible for no kid to ever fall through the gap. It's just impossible that it would not happen. We make every effort, we commend the staff for all their hard work. We make every effort to ensure that no kid does, but just by sheerness of numbers, it happens inevitably. Can you tell us how this, give us maybe a brief overview of how this package that you've created helps reduce those numbers and ensure that the needs are met in a more efficient manner?
When we reflect on Stratford Public Schools over the past several years, we know we became an Alliance district, and we know we have a lot we need to work on. A difficult decision oftentimes to reduce your central office personnel can be really challenging, because we want to make sure that we have leadership overseeing everything. And it was a very thoughtful and strategic plan for us to reduce what was here to increase what's in our buildings. Because what's in our buildings is vitally important. And we know that the people that have the most impact are the ones that see our kids on a regular basis. So as tough as it was for us to stop and think about it, we all thought about the extra jobs that we're doing right now. We thought about the fact that we were not really able to fill our grant position despite it being posted for multiple months. And we thought about our strengths. And it really took a lot of time for me to think about all of our administrators and each of their really amazing individual strengths and what they are so good at. So when we did the restructuring, the jobs that we recreated or reorganized really played to the strengths of these individuals. So when you have your strong leadership, and even though we'll have less people at central office, we're going to have, hopefully 2 assistant superintendents so that they can focus on those academics, those pre-K to 6 and those 7 to 12 academics that need really good instruction. We went through that thorough process to put names forward to you that you will have on Tuesday for you to vote on, and restructuring that way to have a smaller, more efficient central office and to add more people to our buildings, including department heads and the new positions created, to expand CTE, and to make sure that we got as many interventionists back as possible, because we know we need our math, our reading scores in general to go up. Overall, Mike, I think we're going to hit more student needs. I'm hoping by increasing the mental health professionals and making sure our family and student engagement specialists really get out there, that we're going to continue to see that decline in our chronic absenteeism. I'm hoping you're going to reap those benefits next year in Stratford. I'm hoping that because the students have been in the seats more this year, because we are down into the teens for chronic absenteeism, and I want that to continue to drop, hopefully get below 10%, we are going to see the academics start to climb. And that's the overall goal. We also know and acknowledge in Stratford that we need a lot of tender loving care in our curriculum department. And we need to make sure we're setting people up for success. So I think by restructuring, we're setting up a more successful leadership panel. We're increasing our teaching staff and what we need there, despite some reductions. And we are setting up a system where we are making the most of what people are great at. So it was a lot of grueling thought, but I do think this new structure is going to put our students in a place where they can benefit. I am very hopeful. I will never guarantee that you're going to see massive improvements, because education is a unique beast that way. But I definitely feel as though we may take a little bit of hit at central office, but you're going to have strong leadership here that's going to guide the leadership that's in your building. And we are increasing those department heads who are on the ground working with kids, teaching, and in those buildings. I think it's a solid plan, and I do think you're going to see educational improvements because of it.
I do appreciate your enthusiasm and your hard work and your explanations. We, originally we had talked about positions, losing staff, losing numbers. It's my understanding with these new revisions, and if we approve this amendment, more than likely we'll be losing some positions, but not some people. I mean, we respect and admire our staff, the people, you know, the people who work here. With the vacancies that are available and the realignment of some of these positions, do you foresee, for those who are currently working here and who choose to work here next year, and I know it's kind of a prediction, but do you foresee that any person who is currently working in the Stratford Board of Ed system will be able to stay with us through this budget next year?
There's a significant amount of vacant positions. We have 43 posted. I do know that both our teaching union and our administrative union will lose membership positions, but I'm acknowledging that the humans that are currently working for us will most likely be able to choose from a job. So I don't think you're going to have a large impact on your teacher, your people, your actual people,
Sure.
because there are lots of positions for them to choose from. They may not like the positions that are open, and they may choose to leave because that's not the position they want. But we do have currently 43 positions posted and other positions in the queue ready to be posted.
Okay, thank you. That means a lot. That, you know, it seems like we're meeting both the needs of the staff and the students with this.
I think any change is hard, and I think eliminations are really difficult, and this has just been a very emotional budget season. But I do think with the budget we were given to work with, I think this is a very solid plan.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Ms. Borges and Ms. Ninjini, I'm not sure who to direct this one to. We're talking about adding back 19 interventionists. The conversation we had was 9 and 9, so 18 or 19, 9 math, 9 reading. I'm only seeing 1 in the adjustments, and then one reading in the adjustments, and then 1 reading and 1 math in the one-time allocation. So I'm just curious how.
They're in the Alliance grant.
Oh, okay.
So they are in your Alliance grant,
Okay.
and they are in your Title I in the Alliance grant. And Pam's going to correct me if I get the numbers wrong, because we've been going back and forth trying to get as many interventionists as possible. But you have 10 in your Alliance grant, 6 in your Title I, and then the rest in the operating budget. Did I get that correct, Pam?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Then that adds up to 19.
Yes. Yeah.
So you are good at math.
Okay, so this goes to Ms. Borges for the elimination of the assistant principals at Franklin and Lordship School, but then we're adding an ABA classroom at Franklin. So this new assistant principal or new interim principal was the former assistant principal. How are we going to support them adding an ABA classroom? That's only going to increase the number of IEPs, 504s, and disciplinary actions that might take place in the school, and the need for assistance when we have PPTs or anything. So how are we planning to support that?
So even now, you know, maybe you're not aware of this, but those PPT meetings are supported by the special education elementary supervisor, who is Kate Cirilla. She is there to support those, and so is Jess Alexander. So Jess Alexander oversees your pre-K through 23 special programs. So she attends those PPTs, a large majority of them, which does take that off the plate of the principals. In addition, if you compare the disciplinary infractions, the IEP meetings, and the 504 meetings for those 2 small elementary schools to, let's say, Eli Whitney or Second Hill Lane or Johnson has 2 administrators, and they are almost probably triple the number of PPT meetings, and they are managing that with 2 administrators. So I think when you're looking at ratio-wise, they are able to do that, and they also are aware if you need help with PPTs or you cannot attend them, they reach out to my office, and somebody from my office supports and attends them. We actually do that for Johnson as well and for all the other elementary schools, because we want to make sure that we are able to support them. Stratford is really unique and really amazing that we have APs at all of our elementary schools. That is not common practice in Connecticut. There are many elementary schools far larger than ours in other districts without APs. I think they're valuable. We need them. I don't want to lose them. But I think the repurposing of the positions where our 2 small elementary schools, and as long as we stick to not going over that ratio, you are going to be okay in those elementary schools. I do firmly believe that.
So just to counter what you said a little bit, because I did ask you for those numbers earlier today of our current IEPs, 504 and disciplinary. A similar school, a little larger, would be Wilcoxon. And if I'm comparing the numbers currently at Franklin, because that's the one that will be getting the ABA, they have 13 504s and 46 IEPs at Franklin. Wilcoxon has 50 and 37, so they're pretty close. Once we add that further class, you might need an additional support there to cover the PPTs.
It's possible, but remember that next year, part of the proposal for Wilcoxon is to be sharing their AP, because they're also a small school. So that AP is going to be supporting Johnson, because the numbers are just significantly different at the larger schools. And even that jump is, you know, to add one more ABA classroom, you're talking 8 more special ed students. That's an ABA classroom. It's not 20 more students, it's 8 more students. And again, those are really supported by Jess Alexander, so if they did need help, they have help.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not setting anybody up to, in their new role.
To not succeed. I hear you.
Is there any more questions?
I have more.
So just before you go, for clarification, we're discussing the motion to amend at this point, but allowed, and I will continue to allow the conversation to evolve as it goes, just because I think the amendment also has an impact on the overall numbers. But so I've allowed it to kind of wander, but for good reason. So I'll continue to let it go.
Ms. Borges, you talked about the creation of a coordinator of alternative instructional programs for like through that Project Uplift grant. Is the Project Uplift grant, it was for 3 years, correct?
Project Uplift is a renewable grant. We're already in the process of writing that, so we are hoping to continue to do that, to expand it and to continue to do those programs. So they are renewed every 3 years. And there is no additional cost to the district for those renewals. Some grants, when you renew them, the district has to take on a portion of those costs. That's not what it is for the federal grant. So I feel very confident that we will continue to have those funds.
So the sustainability of this grant is, you're comfortable?
Very comfortable with it.
Jump all over the place here. Just warning. The town property insurance. It shows we need to allocate an additional $100,000 toward the town property insurance. Didn't we increase this line item before sending the budget to the town?
Yes, we did. And with all annual renewals, we do meet with our brokers and they do go out to obtain updated quotes and renewals. So we were advised sometime around, must have been it was late March, that it went up even higher. And you may recall, I believe Chris Pia had shared with us that last year the town really struggled with getting a renewal. And I think it's something that was occurring throughout the industry, but the town did in fact have a significant increase last year, and apparently they're facing a significant increase this year. The finance director for the town did send us our detailed information, so we simply are a percentage of that total, and it did in fact increase by $100,000 more than what I had estimated in our budget.
The additional funding for ESY, just clarification on that. That would not be for this summer, correct? Because
That is for this summer.
okay, so that is for this summer.
July 1st starts your new budget, so July 1st is what is the summer you pay for when we budget for ESY.
So I'm just confused as to, like, I know we used and relied on the ESSER funding to help with, was it ESY or the additional summer programs?
Yeah, it was the elementary summer and the high school, but we did not utilize it for ESR.
Okay, so, right, so it was utilized for different summer programs and enrichment programs. I'm just curious then, why was this not in place during the original budget process?
Heather could probably speak to it better than I, but at the end of the day, and we have struggled with this in the past, and it kind of compounds what I am saying constantly about our struggle to fill positions, but particularly a lot of our teachers don't want to work in the summer, and I honestly don't blame them at this point in time, but nevertheless, We have been posting for these positions for the last month, and we are really struggling to fill the positions, which means we'll have to contract out, and that is at a much higher cost.
Pam summed that up quite nicely. So we are just unable to fill the positions, and at this point in time, we do need to have contracts because we are required to do our ESY, and we need to make sure that our students are safe. So we will have to contract those services, and it is at an additional cost when you contract. But I also, like Pam, understand why our teachers need a break.
The eliminate supervisor ESOL dual language, but then we're adding a 1.0 FTE 7 through 12 ESOL dual language department head. So what has changed about this position?
Quite a bit. So that was a supervisor position, and that supervisor oversaw world language, ESOL, and dual language. For us in the administrative union, those were non-tenured positions. So when we restructured, we thought about what building principals can do, the responsibilities building principals can take on, and we thought about the most effective way to add more administrators to our buildings. So the new position you're seeing is a department head position, not a supervisor position, and it is only overseeing ESOL and dual language, no longer the world language. World language will be overseen by our building principals. Again, it's just systems change. That is the job of the acting superintendent currently, to make sure our systems are running effectively. So this will allow for those, and the same thing for the music one. So instead of being housed here at central office, it's a department head position working directly with the students in buildings. We'll be housing one of those at Flood and one at Worcester for the positions that are being added as department heads. Adds an additional administrator to your actual buildings. The one you may ask about, it's overseeing CTE, the one that says innovation and engagement. Thought it was a much catchier title than just simply CTE, but innovation and engagement is expanding our CTE, and that is a huge need in our district right now.
So the responsibilities of that job are just the overseeing of CTE and the expansion.
So they're going to be looking at the CTE curriculum, the evaluation of the CTE teachers, which, because I'm asking the building principals to now evaluate world language, now they will not have to evaluate the CTE teachers. That'll be done by the CTE supervisor, in addition to increasing and bringing back our mentorship program that Diane Cristiano used to run, as well as family and engagement. So there's quite a lengthy list of job description for that supervisor, but all, again, very much speaking to her strengths and what she can really bring here.
No, I asked just because I know several years ago we did have a CTE position before my time on the board, and that CTE coordinator was cut due to budget cut. So now it's.
Yeah, and I think that had we had a magic ball and could have predicted where CTE was going to go, that would have been that was a poor decision to make. And CTE has exploded, and it's definitely a need. So that also evens out just the amount of evaluations for the principals. Again, a lot of heavy thought was put into this.
Probably have more, but go ahead.
All right, so and I was hoping when we had gotten this information and created the opportunity to sit down with the superintendent, we could have answered a lot of these questions, but we'll continue in that vein. Mr. Cormier?
So the funding for the interns, I'm glad to see some of the money put back in the subline for interns. That's how I became a teacher. I did the intern program through the University of Bridgeport. My question regarding that is the language states that right now we're only committing to fall interns. Is that?
No, actually, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, but what we discovered was that we had contracts that were for a full year, so we did have 3 interns that were going to contractually have to be with us in the fall only. As we recognized additional savings in retirement, we kind of worked the math and thought it would be best if we could find a way to put at least 1 intern for the entire school year in every school.
So the 183.6 covers every school for the full year?
You got it.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Hearing none?
I have more. Sorry. To go back to the reinstatement of 4 elementary librarians. So with that, this budget is eliminating 4 5 of the 9 remaining librarians in our school. And eliminating the 2 librarians from the high school, would this not be jeopardizing our NEASC accreditation by eliminating librarians from the secondary level?
We may lose a point, we may get deductions. I don't think it's going to jeopardize our NEASC accreditation, and you are required, just like everybody else, to report any reduction in staff, which pretty much every district in the whole state is doing after ESSER. So all of those will be recorded, and I will again make sure the board knows if any of those have a profound impact.
Interventionists, I know we've touched on this, you've answered where they are, Alliance, Title I, gifts, operating budget. How are these interventionists going to be distributed?
So again, the day-to-day running of the district really does fall on your central office staff, which is why we are restructuring that central office staff. The interventionist will be overseen, managed by Diana Diorio. If you guys approve her on Tuesday, or whoever is in that assistant superintendent role, they will be distributed equitably. They will be based on MTSS needs per building. And again, hopefully, we're going to get more grant funds and be able to add more to make sure that we are really truly meeting the needs. But I do know it's a balance between making sure they have tutors and the interventionists in order to support the students. I have full faith that our teaching and learning department will equitably distribute those to make sure that the needs of each of the buildings are met.
That was my biggest concern, right? Making sure it's not like a one for each building, it's an equitable, right? So that we meet the needs of the children at larger schools like Johnson House and Secondhand Lane
Absolutely.
versus smaller schools.
To that, can you just explain the difference between an interventionist and a coach for general public?
So right now, our focus with the interventionist is the fact that we are an alliance district and we need our students to move. Okay, so the interventionists will be spending the majority of their time providing intervention to students. Coaches are wonderful. Stratford maybe has struggled over the years of the model that we're using, how we're coaching, what we're doing, and coaches would have been used in order to improve Tier 1 instruction in the classroom. Our instructional leaders will be our principals, our building principals, our building APs, as well as central office staff, supervisors, and department heads. So that is going to be your instructional coach and your instructional leaders, and the intervention will be done by the interventionist, which will be services provided directly to the students.
So one more. You mentioned grants, right? And how very important, like grants could help us add things. But yet we are kind of combining many different jobs into one position. So I guess maybe like a breakdown for me so I better understand this. What are the responsibilities of the current supervisor of assessment?
I think it would be best if I just send you all the job descriptions, because there are so many responsibilities for all of us, and I will miss some if I try to remember every single one of them, but essentially I'll give you a quick brief breakdown of what those responsibilities would be, and I will be happy to share the new job descriptions with every single one of you so you can read through each of them. But the grant manager and the accountability manager will serve two purposes. First of all, a lot of our data is needed for grants. Okay, so the two jobs do align. In order for us to obtain these grants and to get the federal grants and the state grants, we need to provide the data to show that we need it and that we are adequately producing what we are supposed to be producing through those grants. So that grant writer, again, when we did the involuntary transfer into that position, really thought about the strengths of that human and what they are good at. So that person will be writing and managing the grants. Each grant will have someone that oversees it. I'll give you an example of IDA because that's a very simple one for you guys to understand because you're used to me. So I am the manager of the IDA grant, but our grant writer is the one who goes through to make sure that I've done everything correctly and make sure that I spend all the money that I'm supposed to spend in a timely fashion. In addition to that, because we are an alliance district, we really do need to make sure that we are accountable to the data that we are collecting, our student attendance data, our discipline data, our testing data, and that typically would have been done by one of the positions we were developing during Alliance, but it's not as streamlined as you would need it to be. So together we are taking a very strong administrator with great data analysis and writing skills and combining them. And then using the support of the wonderful business office to make sure that the finances all align. So it's really, again, trying to be a good leader by looking at what we have for strengths within our department accepting that we were not able to fill that position and making sure that the best person we have here can fill that position.
Understandable. I just have reservations on the fact that we will not have a full-time dedicated grant writer in a district that we clearly depend highly on grants.
I am very excited to month report to you next year the grants that get increased under this model.
All right, we're gonna move on. Some more questions. The motion has been made on the amendment to add to remove the $300,000 from the salary line item and push it into, Mr. Branyan, can you just give some clarification on your motion again? The motion to amend.
Motion to amend is to reduce 300,000 in salary adjustments, and then the administration has a reallocation of 300,000. So it's a zero impact to the adjustments.
Okay, okay. So the motion was made and seconded. Mr. Branyan, how do you vote
Yes.
on the amendment? Ms. Calvavian?
Just clarification from Mrs. Mancini, you are not comfortable with this, correct?
I would prefer not to, but I do think it's a small enough amount of money that it is a risk, but a lot of our assumptions have been risks. So no, I'm not 100% comfortable, but I'm glad it's not 800 or 1 million.
Yeah, I trust in.
So the motion was made, the discussion is ended, so.
So then, no.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
No.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
No.
Chair votes yes, the motion passes 5-3. On to the,
Oh, I forgot, finance, right, 5-3.
Yep, my math is always off, so thank you. Somebody's got to keep an eye on me. So then, moving on to the amended adjustments, the amended budget with adjustments in the total amount of $127,502,725. Motion to approve as amended. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
We'll need a motion to approve as amended.
Motion to approve is amended.
And seconded by Ms. Vidal. Mr. Branyan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Calvavian?
No.
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
No.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
No.
The chair votes yes, the motion passes 5-3. And I wanted to thank Ms. Borges and her staff for all this outstanding work and effort they've done. I want to thank you for all the time and effort you've put into answering all of our questions and making yourself and your staff available to all of us to make those adjustments and those discussions and explain your thinking. And I want to commend the efforts you've made to ensure that our staff and students receive the best services. That being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, there's a second part. Mr. Brady.
You got it.
I apologize.
Motion to accept and move forward to the full Board of Education the following expenditures in the amount of $2 million to expense this cost to the town approved one-time allocation made available for the use by the Stratford Public Schools for the fiscal year beginning 7/1/24. It's the 7 line items that have already been read into record, totaling $2 million.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion on the $2 million allocation? Seeing none. Mr. Branyan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Garfabian?
No.
Mr.
Yes.
O'Brien? Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
No.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
No.
Chair votes yes. Ms. Vidal, you voted? Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 5-3. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a point of clarification. I just was wondering, I haven't seen Mrs. Lance for a while. Can you give us an update if she's coming back to the committee?
Ms. Lance resigned from the committee after her, well, I'll leave it to Ms. Lance to answer those questions as to why she left, but she left the committee. She resigned, so. I take a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn?
Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Ms. Padel. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. We're gonna call before you go, we're gonna call the board meeting to order, and we're gonna recess it for 5 minutes, give everybody a moment to catch their breath. Thank you. Thank you, sir.